Hey there, 8th graders. Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're going to unlock something that is honestly incredibly powerful. We're talking about decoding the invisible blueprints behind almost everything we read. Think about a massive skyscraper, right? It absolutely needs a solid foundation and a strong steel framework just to stand tall. Well, the words on a page are exactly the same. They need a rigid structure to hold them together and actually make sense. And once you learn how to spot this hidden framework, I promise you, reading becomes a whole lot easier. Okay, so picture this. Imagine the pure, unadulterated chaos of trying to build something super complicated without a guide. Have you ever tried putting together one of those flat pack bookshelves or desks without the instructions? Yeah, it's a nightmare. You end up with leftover screws, an upside-down shelf, and just a whole lot of frustration. Well, trying to read a text without understanding how the author built it is exactly like that. You get all the pieces, the words, but you have absolutely no idea how they're actually supposed to fit together.
Let's dive right into Section 1, the blueprint of meaning.
So our absolute golden rule right out of the gate is that every single piece of informational text you will ever encounter has a hidden architectural plan behind it. An informational text structure is, quite literally, the blueprint of a building, but for words. It shows exactly how the parts fit together to support the main idea. See, when an author sits down to write, they don't just throw words onto a page and hope for the best. No way. They act as an architect. They intentionally organize that information so that it builds a really strong, clear, and logical message for you, the reader. And honestly, this idea brilliantly lines up with our foundation. Just listen to this from 1 Corinthians 14:40. But everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. This biblical principle of order applies perfectly to how we structure and understand information. God values order, and when we read or write with a really clear structure, we're actually reflecting that very same orderly design in our own minds.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Okay, but why does this actually matter to me right now? Well, knowing this blueprint makes reading faster, and it makes your learning far more efficient. Understanding text structure helps you remember key points without having to, reread a page 5 times over. It tells you exactly where to look for the facts. And you're going to see this everywhere out in the real world, in the daily news, in instruction manuals, in scientific reports, the whole shebang. Mastering this skill, it doesn't just help you pass 8th grade language arts. It literally makes you a much better student, a sharper worker, and a highly effective communicator.
Moving right along to Section 2, 4 key building blocks. All right, it's time to open up that construction toolbox and carefully examine our very first structure, cause and effect. Think about a typical science article. It explains how one single event makes another event happen. For example, cutting down trees, which is the cause, directly leads to step 2, the tragic loss of animal habitats, which is the effect. Understanding this invisible link completely changes how you absorb the information. Next up, we have our second structure, compare and contrast. This is where an author basically weighs the similarities and differences between two or more things to give you some perspective. Take solar power versus wind power, for instance. An author would use this exact structure to show you how these two renewable energy sources are alike, and crucially, how they differ, which gives you the complete picture so you can make an informed decision. Then there's chronological order. This structure is all about time. It stacks events sequentially, perfectly illustrated by the stages of the water cycle. It starts with evaporation, then naturally flows right into condensation, and finally ends with precipitation. Biographies, history books, and scientific processes use this structure constantly to show a journey from the very beginning all the way to the end. Okay, quick pause. I want you to think about this for a second. And hey, this is actually one of your homework questions, so listen up. Think about a recipe. What structure would it use and why? If you said chronological order, you hit the nail right on the head. A recipe has to go in a strict order of time. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. Because if you try to bake the cake before you mix the eggs and the flour, you are going to have a total disaster in the kitchen. Order absolutely matters. And that brings us to structure number 4, problem and solution. This is where an author shines a spotlight on a major issue and then builds a clear pathway to fix it. Notice the logical flow here. First, the author outlines the massive global problem of plastic waste. And then, they strategically introduce Step 2, recycling programs, as the direct solution to that specific problem. All right, let's switch gears. Section 3, spotting the signal clues. So, we've got our 4 main structures, but how do you actually know which one you're reading without just guessing? Well, it's time to do a little detective work. You need to look for the hidden signal words that give the author's structure away immediately. Consider this your golden ticket. It's an essential cheat sheet mapping the four structures to their exact signal words. For cause and effect, you're looking for clues like because or as a result. For compare and contrast, your dead giveaways are similar or on the other hand. Chronological order, that relies heavily on dates, times, and sequence words like first, then, or next. And problem and solution. Honestly, the author will often literally just use the words problem and solution. Seriously, memorize these.
Let's put that to the test right now. Here is another one of your homework questions. Can you give one signal word for compare and contrast? Just shout it out loud wherever you're sitting right now. If you remembered similar or on the other hand, then you are actively looking for those structural clues. Excellent job tracking that information.
Time to level up. Section 4, Real-World Structural Blueprints.
Okay, so out in the real world, things can get a little bit more complicated than the simple textbook examples. Just like a massive skyscraper has a much more complex blueprint than, say, a tiny garden shed, authors will often mix structures to get their point across. A historical article might start off in chronological order to set the scene and tell a story, right? But then, suddenly, the author might drop in a compare and contrast section to highlight how things changed over a decade. Don't let that throw you off. Just keep tracking those signal words as the author shifts their tools, and you'll stay right with them the whole time.
And finally, Section 5, Education Meets Biblical Morality.
Let's take a deep breath and kind of zoom out for a second here. We've been talking all about blueprints for text, but what about the biggest, most important blueprint of all? The blueprint for how to build a good, successful, and meaningful life. This is the absolute core philosophy of the HeroesMart Academy Godly Learner series. Education absolutely must intertwine with biblical morality. Why? Well, because education without morality will ultimately hurt you. Think about it. What is the point of being incredibly smart, highly educated, and knowing every text structure in the world if you use that intelligence to make bad choices that hurt yourself and the people around you? A brilliant mind without a moral compass is a blueprint for structural failure. Smart people without morality can cause a lot of real damage in this world.
We really need to anchor this whole idea in Scripture. Romans 8, verses 6 and 7 promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. Combining a great education with a spiritual mindset is the ultimate formula for true peace. And this isn't just theory, guys. This is our experience, and it's the experience of so many people who deeply engage with this truth. When you align your sharp, educated mind with God's orderly, moral blueprint, you don't just get smart. You find actual, lasting peace and a real purpose.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. Keep looking for those hidden structures in everything you read, for sure. But more importantly, ask yourself, are you just stacking up facts and getting good grades? Or are you actively building your life on the solid, unshakable blueprint of both sharp intelligence and godly morality? Seriously, what kind of foundation are you building your own mind upon?